Thanks for joining us, Shanaka.
Thanks for having me, Dan.
I'd like to have a chat to you about online retail. So what's the impact of online been to retail organisations?
I think it's been significant, Dan. I think if we look at the Australia Post's recent survey, so they came out and said about 1 in 10 purchases is now made online, which is significant in itself. And then if we look at, there's about 10 million Australians who now purchase online, and that number is growing significantly. So as the demographics start to shift, and that 18 to 36-year-old bracket goes up into terms of discretionary spending as well, it's going to be an exciting area to be in.
What do you see are the consumers' expectations today versus what they were 10 years ago?
That's been a gigantic shift. I think one that's gone from very much a cost focus, and online really opened the door for the consumer to have options. So not just limited to the shop down the road. So that allowed them to then go down the path of looking for the lowest cost. But then since then, we've seen supply chains really come into it and differentiate around responsiveness, and then also convenience and more choice. So product proliferation, and then also delivery options. So we've seen it go from you'll get your package within the next 8 to 10 business days, to 3 to 5 business days, next day, same day, and then obviously with the 2-hour and 30-minute options now, it's getting quite competitive.
So where do you see the opportunity for retailers in the short to medium term?
I think in the short term, it's around differentiating your offer and making sure that it's consistent for the right customer. So not trying to do everything for everyone. What we've seen is a lot of retailers go to market with a national offer or delivery promise that is unachievable when we start to go into more of the remote areas, or that not being priced correctly or accurately. So what we see the opportunity in that short term is to really focus in that offer, make sure that you can deliver a consistent, reliable promise, and then from there looking to go to the next level of granularity and see where the opportunity is in those markets. In the medium term, I think it's a bit around the networks. So understanding if you, from a fulfilment perspective, if you should be in store fulfilment model or a dedicated facility model, that obviously comes with trade-offs around working capital, inventory, and then also the transport cost as well.
And in the longer term?
In the longer term, I think the opportunity is certainly in looking at your online supply chain as a distinctly different supply chain from your bricks and mortar. So the opportunity to differentiate not only the delivery channel, but then also the experience the customer receives once they are delivered the goods. So what we're seeing in the US market is a lot more, particularly in the higher end products, a lot more of a retail sales consultant type model. So like Apple would train their store staff to be very knowledgeable in the product, we're starting to see delivery staff be trained to the same respect.
So what will we as consumers see over the next 5 years?
I think this one will be very interesting because I think the opportunity in the Australian market in particular is very challenging for retailers. So the uptake on some investments that we've seen overseas haven't come to fruition here. So over the next 5 years, I expect click and collect to get a lot more traction. So what we've seen here is Woolworths and Coles really take the baton forward with the investment into their click and collect infrastructure. But as a retailer, you can expect, being a smaller retailer, investing in that infrastructure might seem like a big leap when the consumers aren't ready to adopt the new channel. So as that consumer gets more used to the concept of click and collect, we'll see that network of infrastructure expand, looking to partner more with not just your shop in isolation, but then also extend further into partner stores as well. So convenience channels being petrol stations, cafes, anything that is convenient to the consumer potentially could be a pickup point.
And what do you see as the outlook for 3PL providers?
This one's really interesting, Dan. So when we look at 3PLs over the last, say, 30, 40 years, the concept of why the value add for 3PL has really been around volume aggregation. So give me your volume because I've got more volume then, and therefore I can drive you lower unit costs. So that's been based under pallet distribution. So 3PLs have geared their supply chains towards handling pallets. So their transport networks, the automation in the warehouses has all been geared towards that. Now when we look at online fulfillment, we're fragmenting that volume not just at the warehouse when we're starting to do each picks, but then also all the way through to delivering to store. We're no longer going to 100 households, so they're not big trucks. We're going to potentially 9 million households. So for the 3PLs, it's really interesting because how do they adapt to that is going to be a key challenge that they'll be looking at. But then also when we look at the future of the 3PL, the cost drive has changed away from volume towards product handling requirements. So this is where we'll look at automation playing a more product-focused approach rather than a customer-focused approach.
And what do you see as the blue sky vision for online or last mile fulfillment as it's known?
I think if we look at the 2030 business case, a really blue sky in that respect, obviously there'll be a different type of consumer. The supply chain model, I think in that respect, will flip towards how can a supply chain fit into my day as a consumer rather than how does my day fit into a supply chain. So rather than me having to go pick up something from the post office, things like Amazon Key, Alexa, Google Home will drive more convenience into my life. So if I'm going to get a coffee in the morning, I might go pick up my parcel as well. So it'll be a really seamless integration. Where I see the technology and the processes to support that convenience, that's where it will become interesting for us in this supply chain world. So definitely there's going to be a lot more of leveraging data, so pre-positioning inventory based on understanding your customers, but then also going down the path of technology. If we take drones as one example, the business case for drones in isolation absolutely probably doesn't make sense to many people, but when we start to connect the concept of drone technology with, say, autonomous vehicles, all of a sudden you can look at the autonomous vehicle as a mobile distribution point and a charging station for a drone. That might potentially be a good business case for regional remote communities. So imagine Melbourne to Sydney, autonomous trucks going back and forth, and then drones using those as landing pads and pickup points for goods to then distribute to those communities. Likewise, drones in the more highly densely populated areas, if we take apartment buildings, they're starting to integrate drones into their designs now. So having drone landing pads on the top of skyscrapers and then garbage style chutes to apartment buildings. So you can see that the application isn't in one technology itself, but it's connecting a few things together.
So it appears online is having a significant impact on retailers. What are the sort of questions they're asking themselves? I
think at the moment we're seeing a lot of questions coming from, should I be fulfilling my online channel but using my store network, or should I have a dedicated facility? That's one that keeps coming up. Another one is around my transport partners. So there seems to be a lot of noise in the market at the moment from transitioning from that store model towards a more fragmented customer base. So what's the right mix and balance between the long haul carriers and that more short haul legs from a transport perspective as well? Obviously inventory plays a key role here as well. So product ranges, do I offer the entire range online? What are the expectations I should set with my customer? How do I go about understanding how to set those expectations? So what type of analysis needs to occur to drive that? And then also from a new entry into new markets, what should that look like for online as well?
So as a retailer, if I was to invest in online or wanting to invest in online, where would I start?
This question comes up quite a bit, Dan. So I think the most important thing is to have the fundamental capability in place. So when we look at our existing supply chain, making sure that people, process, systems and data layer, that's the starting point. So from a data perspective in particular, if we're trying to go down the path of pre-positioning inventory for an online network, we need to make sure that the data is appropriate and at the right level of accuracy and granularity to support that. So obviously that involves our demand planning process, our inventory optimization process, and the replenishment planning process, all working together seamlessly. So it's really about making sure your backyard is clean, so to speak, as a starting point. And then once the fundamental capability is in play, I think that's when we should start to be more creative around online.
Well, Shanaka, thank you very much for your time.